Hi there, this is going to be a tutorial on how to get this ladybug that we designed in a previous video ready for a vinyl cutting or vinyl plotting output. Now a quick disclaimer, I don't actually have a vinyl cutter myself and I've only used one maybe a couple times, so my methods may not be appropriate for your needs, but hopefully this is helpful. And from what I've read on some of the forums, there are some common issues that keep popping up, and I think this should address some of those. Hopefully you're going to find this helpful. So when we designed this ladybug, we did a couple things that I know are going to be an issue when you go to try to cut it out. Namely, I used the Bezier tool to draw these feet and the antenna, and I've also grouped some things, and I've made some clones of some objects, and I don't think importing this into other software, I don't think that other software is going to like the groups and clones very much. It might throw an exception and might have some import errors. So let's work on breaking this down, getting rid of the groups and clones, and also taking these Bezier lines that we applied a stroke to and actually converting them to a path so that they actually have some real body to them. Now I'm just going to quickly go into the outline view mode. I'm going to press Control 5, that's the number pad 5, on my keyboard a few times. Let me just try that. There we go. So that gets us into the outline mode, and you can see what I'm talking about. This is just like a little stick line. It has no real body to it. So what we need to do is we need to convert that stroke to path is what you need to do in a case like this. You can find that up on the path menu under stroke to path. Now I don't have anything selected here, so I can't actually use that right now, but that's what you're going to want to do. So let's go back to normal view, Control 5 on the keyboard to get back there. And let's just break everything apart, get it out of the groups. So if you click on this ladybug right now, you can see it's just one big group of 6 objects. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-G to ungroup. And that does most of it. These feet are still a group because I grouped them before I grouped everything together. So we need to keep going, breaking it down further and further to get rid of all the groups. So let's Control-Shift-G on those feet. I know that this face or the head components are all a group. Control-Shift-G on that. I know that I designed the antennas as groups, and this one's actually a clone of this one, so let's just see if we can ungroup that. And it says no groups down here in the status bar, no groups to ungroup in the selection, and that's because that's actually just a clone. So what we want to do in a case of a clone is we want to unlink that clone, so we can use the keyboard shortcut Alt-Shift-D. And now if I click back on that, it's going to tell me it's a group of 2 objects. If you're not a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, if you're looking for clone operations, it's under the edit menu, clone, unlink clone right there. Shift-Alt-D or Alt-Shift-D. So this one is still a group, so let's ungroup that, Control-Shift-G. Let's ungroup this guy, Control-Shift-G. And this looks like that's just a path, but these eyes are a group of 3. And this one is actually a clone of that, so let's Alt-Shift-D. So now that's just a group of 3 objects. Let's Control-Shift-G to ungroup that. Now you can see the bounding boxes pop up for all 3 of those components. I'm going to ungroup this one, Control-Shift-G. And one thing I know is that this, you can't see it here, but this mouth actually has a little stroke around it. It just happens to be black, so you can't see it in this. So I'm just going to Shift-click on this X over here and get rid of that black stroke. So now that is just a filled object, no stroke on it. And there we go. I think we've broken everything down, ungrouped it. So now we should be able to start converting some of these strokes to path and maybe removing some of the overlap here to get this ready for output. Let's start with the feet. I'm going to click on that foot there. It says it's a path of 4 nodes, which is a good indication that it's just got, a few centerline nodes connected. And you can see also down here the stroke of 4. So let's use the famous stroke to path option. Click on that. Doesn't look like anything has changed, but if you click on it now, path of 13 nodes. It used to be 4, now it's 13. If I go to my node select tool, you can see that it is now made up of these nodes around the perimeter of the shape. Whereas if I click on this one, you can see it's just these 4 nodes down the middle. So they look the same, but there's a difference right there. Also, if we were to go into outline mode, you can see this one now has this body. So you'd be able to actually cut around this path and be left with a little foot. So let's just select all of these guys here, Shift-clicking them, and we're going to use Control-Alt-C on the keyboard, convert those paths, or convert those strokes to paths, I should say. And there we go. The feet are ready You could print them off like this or cut them out like this if you wanted. You could just sort of slap them down on the paper, stick the body over top, and it would be all right, except in my view, I think you would have a little wrinkle or a little sort of a crease or a line where these feet are under the body. So I think I would like to remove that overlap. So what I would do in a case like this is I would select all of these feet and I would union those together. So that would be path union, which is going to weld them or combine them or whatever wording your other software uses that you might be more familiar with. You're basically joining them or unioning them together. So I'm going to click that. Now they are all one. You can see there's no more individual bounding boxes. They're contained within the one bounding box. Let's just hit Control 5 to go back to our normal view. And what I'm going to do at this point in time is actually going to select everything, and I'm going to give everything an 80% opacity down here, just so it's easier to see what's over and under another object. So you can see that these feet extend under the body. What I would like to do is I'm going to duplicate this body. So I'm going to click on it, Control D to duplicate it, and then I'm going to shift click on all these feet, and I'm going to go Control minus on the keyboard to do the difference operation. Now the reason that I duplicated the body first, if you don't know, is because when you use the difference operation, whatever object is on top or higher up in the stacking order, it's going to disappear after it cuts out all of the lower level material that was within that shape. So everywhere those feet extended into or underneath this body originally got deleted. So if I move this body out of the way, you can see that is in fact the case there. And had I just used the original body, this body would now be gone. Hope that makes sense. I'm just actually going to backtrack a second here, right to there, where I haven't duplicated the body. I'm going to show you what I mean by that very specifically. So I'm not duplicating the body. I'm just going to shift click on the feet and I'm going to difference it. And so it did what we wanted. It got rid of the feet that underlapped the body, but it also got rid of the body. So that kind of sucks. Let's undo that. Let's redo the steps we did previously. Control D to duplicate the body, shift click on the feet and Control minus, and there we go. Now these circles I don't think we need to do anything with, because I think if you were cutting these out, you would just cut these out of some black vinyl and stick them right on top of the red, and that's going to look fine. We do need to deal with where this head intersects the body here. So let's just do what we basically just did. Control D to duplicate that head. Notice it moves it to the very top. It's now at the top of the stacking order. It's above the eyes. You can still see the eyes in the face simply because the opacity is set to 80, but it is now at the top. So this is going to be the thing that subtracts from the thing lower than it. And I know thing is the technical term there. So let's shift click on the body and Control minus to do a difference. And now again, it doesn't look like a whole lot's changed, but if I move that head out of the way, you can see it did cut out that red for the body. And now again, this might not be exactly the steps that you use when you're doing stuff. I know it might be a little harder or considerably harder to kind of line this head up perfectly within that cutout for the body, but in case this is your method, I'm showing you this way. If you don't care and you just if you cut out this red body with that arch in it and you put the black right over top of it, you can just simply skip these steps, but yeah, that's your call. So let's see, what do we want to do? Let's join these antennas to the body. Let's go back to outline mode and see that these antennas are still just a thin path with with a stroke. They don't actually have any body themselves, so we need to convert those. So I'm just going to shift click on both of those, Control Alt C to do the stroke to path. And now I'm just going to shift click on both of those circles and I'm going to hit Control plus to union them. Let's go back to normal mode. Shift click on the face, Control plus. Now it unions all of those together. And at this point in time, you could be done because all of these shapes you can drag off into different areas and lay them out in something sensible for your cutting. So technically you could be done at this point in time. What you might want to do, though, if you're frugal like me and you want to save some space on your vinyl, and you might want to take all the black stuff and lay it out together. So let's do that. Let's take this black and this, and we're going to lay this all out together. And one thing you might notice that's going to be a little bit of an issue is I've got some white pieces in the eyes and the mouth. They can't really see anymore. They look like they're gone. They're not. They're actually in here somewhere. You can see there they are. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to give them just sort of a lighter gray color so they're not 100% white, so you can actually see where they are easier. And so there's everything, so you could lay these all out together. The other thing you could do if you don't want to do that and you want to just go back to outline mode, that's going to help you find where all these objects are as well. Let's go back to normal mode. Another thing you could do is just use Control A on the keyboard. That's sort of the select all command, and that would give you a bounding box around all of the objects, even the ones that were white and that you weren't able to see. So there's a few ways to find things that might sort of be visibly hidden on you. And so again, you could carry on. You could lay these all out. One issue you're going to find those when we get to the feet, if you really wanted to be compact with this, since we unioned these earlier, they're now just like a block of feet. You can't move one closer to the other. A way you could deal with this is you could break these apart with the break apart command. So up under path, where is it now? I always use the shortcut. There it is, break apart, Control Shift K. So Control Shift K on the keyboard, and what it does is it separates all the closed geometry into its own path, which is pretty much exactly what we want in this case. And we could, tuck these in real tight. We could even, if we wanted, we could rotate them to snug them up or nest them even a little bit tighter. And there we go. Now we're having a pretty consolidated use of and efficient use of our vinyl. So I just want to touch on that break apart command one more time though, because that could get you into a little bit of trouble. If you have an enclosed path within another enclosed path and use break apart, it might become a little bit confusing on what happens. And I'm just going to create some text here just to illustrate that example. So I'm going to create a D. Let's make it a little bit bigger here. And if you had something like this, you'd probably be well served to convert this to a path so it's no longer a text object, because right now you can see it is a text object. Let's break that apart. Sorry, not break it apart. Let's convert that to a path. Control Shift C. Also from the path menu, object to path, Control Shift C or Shift Control C. Now, if I was to break this apart, what's going to happen is it's going to take this outer closed path, and it's going to make that one object, and it's going to take this inner closed path and make that an object as well, which seems quite reasonable until you realize that when it does that, it turns everything the same color. So Control Shift K on the keyboard. Sorry, I can't do that yet, simply because I took a text object, I converted it to a path, and when Inkscape does that, it makes it a group, even if it is just one character. You can see down here, it's a group of one object. So trying to perform Boolean operations on this is not going to work. That's going to be a rude little surprise or a rude little bit of confusion for you. So let's just ungroup that, Control Shift G. And now if I click on it again, you can see it's a path of 22 nodes. If I use the node select tool, you can see where all of those nodes are. So back to break apart. If I hit Control Shift K, it breaks it apart. So there we are. It also kind of does it in an unintuitive way. What used to be white, the little center closed path, is actually at the very bottom. See if I click in the middle here, you'd expect I'd be picking the middle of the D. Well, it actually, the outside of the D is at the top for whatever reason. So I'm going to move that down to the bottom. Now if I click in the middle, I can select the inner part. So if I give that a color, oops, I didn't mean to do that, but sure, that color works. So now you can see we have this D with a inner fill. We're able to change easily. But if I click that and drag it off, you can see it's kind of confusing. You don't really have a D anymore. So if you do use the break apart command, just know that that's what's going to happen. It's intentionally going to do that. And it could be a little confusing, especially if you break it apart when you're looking at it in outline mode. I'm going to undo this. Say you're to break it apart. It doesn't look like anything has changed, but it's going to be a little bit weird when you go back to normal view and you're trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do. So you could select this, you could select that and Control minus to difference the mode again, and you're back to sort of your original path. Just keep in mind that this, again, it can be confusing, especially if you had closed paths within closed paths. So if I was to union those and I could break that apart, I have a whole bunch of different paths inside one another, and they've all gone to the same color. So, which is which, I don't know. And also the outermost one is at the very top layer. So you would have to move that down to the bottom. You select the next biggest one, move that down to the bottom. Now it gets confusing fast. What I like to do in a case like that is just start applying colors, different colors to these things. Let's move that down. There's another one. Start giving them different colors, and you're eventually going to be able to sort out what's going on. So sorry, that was sort of a long-winded sidebar on break apart, but if you weren't interested in that, you could have stopped watching the video a while ago, because that already kind of completed our breaking this ladybug down, getting it ready for cutting or vinyl plotting output. So hey, hopefully you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.